Today we will recap a 2000 sci-fi adventure movie called Mission to Mars, where a group of astronauts visit Mars and make a strange discovery. So, let's get started. The story begins in Texas, where a group of astronauts hold a party with their friends and family before leaving for a mission to Mars. Phil enjoys time with children while Nicholas flirts with various women. On the other side, Woody and Terry are excited about their first mission as a couple. However, Commander Luke Graham is sad due to his friend Jim's absence in the party. Luke's wife, Deborah, asks Luke to visit their son, Bobby, who's upset about Luke leaving and him having no one who can read him bedtime stories. Luke comforts Bobby and says his mother will take care of him in his absence. Soon Jim arrives and Luke gives him a warm welcome. Later at night, Luke, Woody, and Jim discuss the Mars mission. Jim had been preparing 12 years for this mission, but the sudden death of his wife, Maggie, traumatized him, and he was unable to pass the essential psychological tests. Luke tells Jim that he feels guilty about doing something Jim was supposed to do, but he reassures Luke that it's not his fault, and he shouldn't blame himself. 13 months later, the crew, including Renee, Luke, Nicholas, and Sergei, finally land on Mars, whereas the rest of the team observes their journey from the World Space Station. The team detects a white mountain on Mars that is located 16 kilometers from their location. Upon analyzing the picture, Luke guesses that it is something like an extrusion made up of underground hot water. The crew decides to visit the site and sends a video to the space station, saying they might have found a key to permanent human colonization. Back at Mars, Luke and his team reach near the view, but they notice a strange noise coming from their radar. Renee suggests that it may be some interference from the rover they used to travel, and goes to fix the radar, which keeps indicating that there is some metal under the mountain. As Luke increases the power, radar shuts down and a vortex of Martian sand starts to form. The vortex pulls Sergei, Renee, and Nicholas into it and shreds their bodies into pieces, leaving only Luke alive. Later, as the vortex subsides, a huge humanoid face is revealed instead of the mountain. Back at the space station, Jim gathers the team and informs them about the loss of connection with the crew. He also adds that a catastrophic burst of energy from Mars was felt just as they lost connection. As Terry asks about the crew, Captain Ray informs them that the level of energy didn't seem survivable. During their discussion, a video comes from a troubled Luke, who informs them about the situation, and the video ends abruptly. Jim says that Luke can't come back on Earth Return Vehicle, ERV, as the energy must have burnt down the control panels. He adds that the only way to reach him is by launching Mars Mission 2. The chief, Ray, tells them that it might be unsafe to land there. Phil suggests using the Saturn imaging probe to explore since it will be passing the Mars orbit, but Ray says they can't launch Mission 2 this soon. However, Jim informs Ray that he's completed all required experiments for Mission 2, and they can easily launch. Ray asks him to prepare a proposal and send it to him so that they can think about it. As everyone leaves the meeting, Woody stays behind and urges Ray to make Jim his co-pilot. Ray says Jim still needs to pass a few psychological tests to join the mission. Woody continues to explain that Maggie's death affected everyone. Jim has been trained for this, and he is stable enough to be a co-pilot now. Ray, after thinking for a while, says yes to Woody. Later at the Mission 2 probe, Phil is busy creating the DNA of his ideal woman with the help of candy, and Jim eats a few of them. Meanwhile, Woody notices a sandstorm around half of Mars. He calls Jim, and they decide to fasten the process, as once these storms cover the whole planet, they last for more than a year. The following morning, they finally get the satellite images which show 3 graves at the landing site. Phil suggests that since there are 3 graves, Luke may still be alive. However, Terry advises that it may be because no one was there to bury Luke. Ray allows them to launch since the images are confusing and a site check is necessary. The crew of Mission 2, consisting of Phil, Woody, Terry, and Jim, get themselves ready for the launch. Jim plays a video of his deceased wife Maggie, who was also the co-commander for Mission 1 initially. Woody comes and they get motivated to follow Maggie's dream. She believed life attracts life in the universe and was a staunch supporter of life on Mars. Later, as they start the launching procedure, a malfunction occurs, causing the screen in front of Phil to break. The glass from the screen pierces through his palm, causing blood to flow, and due to no gravity, the blood roams in the air. They get an alert that the pressure inside the probe is unstable, and Terry realizes that blood is going out of a hole. Woody fixes the hole, but the atmosphere remains unstable, so he decides to go out. As the ship is huge, it's nearly impossible to find small holes. The team gets an idea, and they open a liquid. It travels out while Phil hard boots the complete system. Woody, upon noticing the fluid, fixes the hole outside, and the atmosphere inside stabilizes. Woody comes back inside, and they restart. As he transfers the fuel to the engine, a small hole causes the fuel to leak into space. The crew, unaware, starts the launch, but unfortunately the ignition fire ignites the fuel in space, and a blast takes place, damaging the probe. With only 3 minutes left for the probe to survive, the crew decides to exit and use the supply module, Remo, left by Mission 1, which is 1 kilometer away from them. They exit the probe and find out that Remo is moving at a very high speed. Woody detaches himself from the crew and uses his rocket pack to fly to the Remo so that he can fix the rope to the module and make it stop moving. However, his fuel finishes, so he detaches the rocket pack and he shifts to autonomous flight mode. Woody's speed increases, and he tucks the rope into Remo, but unfortunately misses to hold it himself and flies past it. Due to the way his suit functions, he can no longer fly backwards. The crew reaches the module, but they don't have enough supplies to fly to Woody and come back. Terry becomes desperate to get her husband back and tries everything to save him, but Woody stops her. He makes her realize that if she follows him, she'll die too. To save her from the guilt of making this difficult choice, he confesses his love to Terry and takes off his helmet. This direct exposure to space instantly kills him. Terry, in utter shock, starts crying. Jim consoles her and calls her back, telling her that Woody is gone and they need her for the mission. Back at the space station, they stop receiving data from the crew and assume they are dead. But a researcher comes to Ray and tells Remo has landed on Mars. Ray believes that it was done by Jim and rejoices over the news of their survival. On the other side, the crew lands on Mars and fixes the national flag that was set by Mission 1. They then repair the damaged control panels and enter the habitat of the previous crew. As Jim explores the habitat, he finds greenery inside and tells everyone that someone has been living here. Luke suddenly appears from behind and tries to attack Jim, thinking he's a hallucination. Jim handles him and talks about Luke's family and makes him realize the crew is on the rescue mission. Luke asks about Woody upon seeing Phil and Terry, but Jim tells him Woody couldn't make it and Luke breaks down. After settling, Luke informs them about the vortex and says that it spared him so he can find the truth. The crew looks at him doubtfully, so Luke decides to take them to the site. After they visit the graves, Jim notices a storm and asks Luke about it. Luke informs Jim that the storm has been like this for ages and it won't escalate. They go back to the hab, and Luke tells them there have been multiple sandstorms, meteor falls, and lava, so they might have missed it. As Jim asks what he is talking about, Luke shows pictures of the giant humanoid face that was revealed after the vortex subsided. Jim asks about the sound that tagged along the day of the attack, and Luke informs that he has done his part of the research. The sound comes in patterns, and linking it to a mathematical system creates a DNA with 2 missing chromosomes. Later, while arranging stuff at the hab, Jim accidentally drops Phil's candies. He looks at them and thinks about the DNA Phil created and gets an idea. Jim tells Luke and Terry that the sound coming from the face is a test. It wants them to complete the missing chromosomes and prove that they are humans. Jim assumes that the first crew couldn't succeed because it did not complete the chromosomes, but rather pointed a radar at the face. The face interpreted it to be the wrong answer and attacked in defense. Jim asks Luke to record the sound of missing chromosomes, attach it to the previous sound, and then they can take it to the face. However, Terry and Phil hesitate because of the deadly outcomes, but Jim tells them they can't let the death of previous crew members go in vain. Luke says that they can stay behind and send their remote camera towards the face with the sound. After they recreate the sound, the crew sends the camera ahead. They play the modified sound, and as it ends, an entrance begins to form from the face with a blinding white light coming out. Everyone rejoices over the response, and Terry interprets that it is an invitation. Luke, Jim, and Terry decide to visit the face in their rover. However, Phil stays behind. Jim tells him to wait for them until the given deadline. If they don't come back, Phil can launch the ERV without them. The crew enters inside and their connection with Phil cuts off as the entrance closes. Terry and Luke get anxious while Jim notices on his controller that inside the face, the air is breathable. Jim removes the helmet of his spacesuit. Terry, alongside Luke, follows him. After taking off the helmets, they see a dark entrance forming again. They enter the dark space and find the complete solar system in front of them. Then they see Mars in the past, which looked like Earth until an asteroid hits it and made it lifeless. A Martian alien comes out and guides them. They soon learn that millions of years ago, when the asteroid hit Mars, Martians had to leave their home planet, with most of them settling in other galaxies, while one spaceship came and settled on Earth. The crew interprets that it was Mars that gave life to Earth, and the Earth flourished. The alien and crew join hands and a small circle forms in the middle. As the alien disappears, Phil's voice reaches them, telling them to hurry as the storm is really bad and the ERV can't hold much longer. Luke and Terry turn around to leave, but Jim stays. He refers to the small circle and says that they are already standing on a spaceship. Jim adds that it is an invitation and he'll use the Martian ship to explore space like Maggie always wanted to. Luke and Terry smile at him, and then Luke thanks him for saving his life while Terry gives him Woody's necklace. They understand Jim's decision and leave. Outside, Phil is calling them, but due to the storm, the signals drop and Phil can't hear them. Luckily, just as Phil is about to leave, they find each other and they all fly away. On the other side, Jim steps into the Martian ship and a transparent capsule surrounds him. It starts to fill with water, and as Jim sinks in, he realizes he can breathe in it. Jim witnesses flashbacks of all the beautiful moments of his life, and ultimately, the Martian ship launches as well. The movie ends with Luke, Terry, and Phil noticing another ship in space and assume it is Jim, whom they wish good luck for his journey ahead. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.